that's been jumped in. When you go into science fiction movies, typically you go into Blade Runner, and from the time you sit down, the megacorps have already run, right? When you sit down in Rollerball, the megacorps have already won. So what's very interesting is this is the prequel to that, right? This is, there's the Planet of the Apes, right? Which is just such a wonderful movie. And when I first saw it, I had no idea they were on Earth. It was shocking to me. I was a kid. And then you see the kind of prequel to it, how this happened. So I've been trying as much as I can to meticulously observe and chronicle what's happening now. I expected this. I expected the megacorps to take over. I expected that it would be successful because politicians were no longer responsive to the electorate, right? We saw that they were retreating. We saw a lot of shifts that were happening with people's use of language. People were protesting hate language, whatever like the technical word for that, what they call it is. And so, it was clear to me that we were in that part, that we were in the prequel, that the prequel had really begun. And I just wanted to make sure I caught a careful chronicling of it as it occurs, because I also realized that it's happening much faster than the mind can perceive, right? All of this is happening so fast, and the brain is not designed to be able to comprehend and synthesize all of this information. So what happens is, some part is deliberate, some part isn't, but, people's minds can only hold so many thoughts at a time, in the frontal lobe. So, clearly the media is trying to overwhelm all that. And a person is just kind of reduced to very simple dichotomies that are made within a fraction of a second. So when you say that, they attributed it to the right, to whatever the right is, I don't know, how these things are assigned, but to the right, whatever they call these things, I don't know what they call. I don't really pay attention to that stuff. But to the right, that's the way that will stick with people who are already biased against the right, because as soon as they hear that word, they make a decision rule, right? And then it's like a postcard, and it gets filed into their head. And I'm really fascinated by it because the decision rules are getting quicker. There's an urgency to it that never happened before. It used to be you'd get 20 minutes to make up your mind, right? It used to be when an employer would say, hey, do you want the job or not? Walk around the block a few times and come back and tell me. That those decision rules now are happening within fractions of a second. And it's just fascinating to me. So I've been trying to record all this and capture all this. And part of that is the Biden win, right? Is what happens next with the Biden win. What happens next, with, how Trump has been treated, whether fairly or unfairly. I'll let other people decide that, because, that's that requires history, right? That requires kind of look back. And my argument is also that history will never permit that look back. So I think our modern history is going to begin with like a Joe Biden, because they can present them as an FDR too. And while as Trump is clearly, they have not permitted Trump to open up the profligate reservoir. And that's been a real constraint on Trump, that they wouldn't let him open up all those spigots, at least as freely as they would like. He hasn't been congenial to power, and they haven't been congenial to him. Well, once Biden comes in, as Paul said, there will be a reconciliation. I don't think there's going to be a Green New Deal that's as presented, but clearly there's going to be something that has to tame people down. And also you're going to need to redirect all of those social movement programs, because they're not going to go away. There's zero chance they're going to go away. Zero. So you're going to need to redirect them. And they're going to be unhireable. You're not going to be able to hire these people. So you also are going to need to have a world of contractors, because if you're a corporation, right? If you're an Amazon and you have a choice of there's a troublemaker, right? They're a troublemaker. It's clearly, you've got a profile of them. They've done all the tests. They have got a clear social history. Now you have a choice. You're going to bring them on as a W-2 employee, in which case they create a lot of risk, headline risk, right? Headline risk, and other types of risk. Or you're going to have them as a contractor, in which case there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of legislation, and there's a lot of protections between the legal entanglements between you and that employee. So you're going to have all these people are going to be redirected to new things. And I think they're going to be redirected to whatever presents itself as the Green New Deal, to a Greta type of thing. I think we'll see a reemergence of that because these people are already activated. They're not going to be deactivated. They're going to be increasingly activated, become increasingly violent, and they're going to be used to suppress other types of dissent, middle-class dissent that comes from taxation that you have in Europe, where you have wealth extraction through these VAT taxes and all these other type of things. While as in Europe, it's a little bit easier to quiet all those protests down, or it was easier to quiet all those protests down. In America, it's not so easy to stop mass dissent. So, it's interesting. It's fun to watch, right? It's interesting.